Hey, it's Jeff, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to show you how I propagated my Syngonium Podophyllum. This sad looking one right here. I'm going to have to start off by apologizing because you'll just have to use your imagination. Just picture this plant being in this pot. I filmed this about maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago, right from the start. So from me pruning it, showing how to prune it, where to prune it, putting it in water, all that kind of thing. But I forgot to transfer over the files from my phone to the computer to save for a later date once it started the root. So yeah, I'm basically gonna have to start over from the beginning because all those files got deleted. I don't know what happened. So anyways, I'm gonna go over how to prune it again, like where to prune it, and I'm actually gonna show you some results from the pruning. And I'll show you the cuttings in water here as well. So let's get into it. I'm gonna beat you guys to the comments and say, I know it's such a Canadian thing to apologize and say sorry for something like this, but hey, it's just what we do as Canadians, eh? Okay, so with Syngoniums, when you buy them from the store, they're usually smaller plants. They're fairly compact, but just like most other aroids, they do have aerial roots, and they like to latch on to things like trees and either grow upwards, or sometimes if you have these in like hanging baskets or something like that, they actually are a viney type plant. So I'll try and find a picture. I'll insert it in if I can find a recent one where it's kind of drooping over. So you can see these stems are really long and they just kind of flopped over in this pot. So my intention was to cut off the tops in hopes that it would, I guess, get a little bit more bushier, maybe branch out into that kind of more condensed, compact type Syngonium like when I first bought it, instead of this super long and leggy plant. So I just wanted to do this as a little bit of an experiment. It is November right now, so kind of that late fall, early winter, I guess. It's not really the opportune time to prune a plant, just because the plant is not growing as fast as it would, say, in the spring or summer months. It's not receiving as much sunlight, the days are shorter, so it's not photosynthesizing as much as it would in the summer, and it's not obviously using nutrients and water like it would as well. So if you're going to prune it, I would recommend in the spring and summer months, but like I said, this was a little experiment on a $5 plant. Okay, so I'm going to show you the main plant here first. So you can see these stems did not have any leaves on it anymore, and basically what I did is I took my pruning shears and I looked for, oh, where's my pencil? I'm not prepared. Oh no. Oh shoot, I think I left my pencil upstairs. Along the stem here, you'll see these little lines. If you're unfamiliar with them, these are leaf nodes or leaf lines. You can see each one of these actually has a leaf attached at that line. You'll also see these little bumps. These are aerial roots. These are what will latch onto trees or walls or anything that it can grab onto. And it actually uses them to get moisture and nutrients from the air or from the surrounding environment as these continue to grow upwards. So anyways, whenever you decide to make a prune or a cut, always cut in between these leaf nodes, what's called the internode. So you take your sterile pruning shears and just make a cut in between those two leaf nodes. And eventually, like you can see, it'll start to push out new buds. Whenever you cut off the top of the plant, it no longer focuses energy growing straight upwards, but it activates, or it should activate, some of these nodes to produce further branching, because it can no longer grow from the cut portion. It will start to push out growth along the stem. Sometimes you'll get maybe one new growth, and other times it will activate numerous nodes, like this one right here, which I'm pretty surprised at because, like I said, it's early winter right now. These plants are usually a little bit slower growing, but I was only expecting maybe one node to be activated. There's a few nodes on each stem. So you can see down there, there's some new growth, there's some new growth there. Spin the plant around, and even close down here. I did a trial of a couple different, I guess, methods. One, I cut these stems really close to the soil, so it's going to start to branch out there. And then I left some of these, or these 2 or 3 stems a little bit longer, and it's activated nodes in numerous places along the stem. So that is super interesting. That's why I love making these videos and doing these little experiments, is just to see how the plant grows and how it reacts to pruning and different types of care, watering, fertilizer, all that kind of stuff. So there's two ways you can propagate this. You can just cut off, like I did in this situation, just the entire stem, put it in water, or you can take individual leaf nodes. But what you want to do is, like I said, cut in between two leaf nodes in the internode and make the cut, make the prune. And this you can stick in water. So in order for a single leaf or a single leaf propagation, you need a portion of the stem and you need that leaf line, leaf node area with those aerial roots. You can stick this in water. You can also propagate it in perlite. I have many different videos on my perlite prop boxes if you want to go check that out as well. But yeah, if you want numerous cuttings from one stem, then that's how you do it. You take individual cuttings with this one node. So here's an example of the stem cutting, and it's got a leaf here, and leaf here. You can take 3 separate cuttings just by cutting in between those leaf nodes. So you can take this as a single cutting, you can take this one as a single cutting, and this one, and they will all grow into their own individual stems or plants, and you can make a nice full pot, just very similar to this one. Well, eventually I guess it'll start to bush out again. And even these nodes that don't have any leaves, you can cut these up as well, put them in perlite, I would suggest, and eventually it'll start to sprout roots from these little bumps, these aerial roots, and eventually it will also push out some new growth from these as well. So these are what's called wet sticks, and you can propagate the leafless nodes. So now I'm going to take these out of the water, the little container here, and I'm going to show you the roots on these plants. This one, not the greatest example, it's just got a little bit of roots popping out of that leaf node there. You can see there is no roots growing from lower in the stem, maybe a little bit right there. So I'm actually going to cut this off, just like that. And the reason why is this is a little bit early to be potting up in soil, but I'm going to do it anyways. I'll show that after this taking all these cuttings out of the water. It could probably go back in water for another few weeks, but I'm gonna take my chances and pot it up as it's got some roots here today. But if it does not have any roots lower in the stem, I'm just gonna cut that off as I don't want too much excess stem on there. Okay, so we'll set this one aside. Again, you can propagate this in perlite if you want. Okay, so this one barely has any roots. I'm gonna find one that has some decent roots here. Some of them have rooted really well, like this one, and others have not. They've been in the same container, same water, everything, and look at the roots on this one, huge. Okay, so this one is absolutely ready to be potted up in some soil. So there is no dead leaves on this one. I'm gonna pot that one up, I'll pot this one up, set that aside. Here's some more. Look at these roots, incredible, super healthy. This leaf right here, it's kind of dried up and died back, so I'm just going to remove that. You just pull it off the stem, set that aside. Some nice roots on that one. No new roots on this one. That's kind of surprising. When you do have it in water, some of the lower leaves that are submerged in water might die back a little bit. So I just let them get yellow and then I remove them. This one's got some nice roots in different areas along the stem here, so I'm not going to cut this one. It's even got roots up there. This looks absolutely gorgeous. This one does not have any roots. You know what, I might pot these up in soil anyways, just to see if these ones that didn't root in water will either die back or they will grow. So I'm going to cut this stem right here. My goal is to eventually add these or combine these cuttings back with the original pot, but I'm going to add them into a separate pot today just because whenever you take water propagated cuttings and put them in soil, you want to keep them relatively wet, well watered for about the first 2 weeks. You don't want these water roots to dry out. Otherwise, your plant won't survive very long. So if you add them into an existing pot like this, you may run the risk of giving this plant some root rot, as these cuttings need to be well watered So I'm going to start the separate pot, and then once they transition to soil, I'll add them back in this one. So I'm simply just going to add all these cuttings, the rooted and unrooted ones, into this smaller terracotta pot. I know I'm going to have to upsize it down the road, but like I said, once it transitions into soil, then I'm going to put it back in this larger pot. So I'm not too worried about the size of the pot right now. And it doesn't have to be anything pretty. I'm just sticking the cuttings in. I'm going to add some soil, and then I can adjust the stems as I go along. I'm just using a tropical plant soil. It's got some extra perlite in there. I'm going to hold all these cuttings together, and then I'm going to add soil around the pot so that all these cuttings stay upright. I know you can't see much on the video, I apologize, even though I have it on the tripod. Okay, move that back a bit. Add the soil around it, and then I'm going to give it some water. Like I said, make sure you keep it well watered for the first 2 weeks. Don't let these water propagated roots dry out. All these cuttings are staying upright. I'm just packing it down a little bit so you can see it's almost full of soil. And I actually like this. It's kind of a nice little bushy plant already. Okay, with those flopped over, just gonna pack it down. Just something like that. So I'm gonna give it some water right now. This is filtered water. I do have it's like a little attachment that screws onto your tap. It has replaceable cartridges that I think you're supposed to replace it like every 3 months, but it filters out harmful things like chlorine and that sort of thing in your water. So I just fill up these little 4-liter jugs and then bring it downstairs. Okay, so I'm gonna give it a little bit of water, let that soak in. You can see the soil on top is a little bit dry, kind of, I guess, it's probably a little bit on the hydrophobic side, so it's gonna take a little while for those fibers and stuff, I think it's just peat moss, to, I guess, soak in the moisture. Just gonna water it till it comes out to the bottom of the drain hole. Clean off the pot here as well. I'm just gonna show this with some of my other Syngoniums as well. This is the Batik. It's got some beautiful variegation on it. But if you wanted to propagate this one, you can do the exact same procedure. Just cut in between 2 leaf nodes. This top portion you can root, or you can root in either water or perlite, even sphagnum moss, like it's currently in right now. Here is the small little green splash. This one, you can see, it was done by, looks like a single node cutting as well. There is no stem underneath this right here. So this is the node, and the roots are in moss. So this is a single node or leaf cutting, and it's growing into its own new stem, new plant. Here is my Syngonium albo. This one, it did have a couple leaves on it. I don't know if I overwatered or what, but all the leaves fell off, and I rehabbed it in perlite. So that one I've now transferred back into soil. Here is the 3 kings. And again, you can do the same thing. Cut off a little portion of the stem, put it in water or perlite, make an entirely new plant. Here's the Wendlandii. I am so upset because the other day I went to go grab a, I think it was just my watering can or something like that, and the end of the leaf was touching the can, grabbed the can, and it pulled off. This is the newest leaf. It was, I guess, undamaged. There was nothing wrong with it. And then I went and tore it in half. Jeez, that's crazy. Here is the Syngonium mottled, same thing. Once you get a larger portion of the stem, you can cut it back. It should start to branch out, and you can pop this guy in some water. Syngonium chiapens be another good one to propagate, and that's probably what I'll be doing with this one down the road once it starts to grow. Oh, it's getting a new leaf. So yeah, any Syngonium that you have, you can propagate it with this method. So I think that's gonna be pretty much it for this Syngonium propagation video. And again, I am so sorry I lost the initial footage, but yeah, we got through it. So hopefully you found this video useful and helpful and can apply it to your houseplants. Thanks again for watching, everyone. Take care, bye.